Dogma. A principle or principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. Well, on the plus side, there were significantly less interruptions this time, to the point where I didn't feel it necessary to run the numbers. But that's about where the good ends. So, let's discuss the second debate between Harris and Pence. Harris won this debate without a doubt. Pence doesn't have the power that Trump has. He's basically Trump's NPC. Harris is Biden's partner, his running mate. She complements Biden in every way. Where Biden is unrefined but wise, Harris is hungry, intelligent, and eloquent. That being said, Harris did have this weird and kind of cringy habit of saying Joe and I, as though they were a couple, or as if she was trying to make America see them as though they were her friends. I don't really understand why she was doing it. Pence just parroted a lot of what Big Daddy Trump's points were. He's a lot more well-spoken than Trump, and far more understandable because of it. Pence didn't really discuss any policies, though, and used his time mostly to dismiss Harris's points. Harris affirmed stances, pointed out flaws, and put forward policies that could potentially fix those issues. Having said that, the two of them had a habit of just avoiding the question and appealing to emotions. Pence did this every time, and Harris frequently started off topic. I said that she put forward policies, but this was only after a lengthy anecdote or an off-topic point. This could have all been mitigated if the moderator did her job, though. She did nothing. At least the last one fought Trump and, to a lesser extent, Biden. Susan did nothing. She just sat there and at most thanked the person who was talking to try and get them to shut up.
Said to us, if we did everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President
Now, one
Pence,
life lost is too many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first responders.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the...
For obvious reasons, this didn't work. This debate was bizarre. Pence lied time and time again. Harris's biggest failure was probably that she didn't fight Pence on the lies and didn't point out how they were wrong. And I really don't know why she didn't. By the end of the debate, I was left questioning whether Pence was even alive. He didn't react to a fly landing on him, and he didn't seem to answer a single question. That could have easily been pre-recorded. Seriously though, what was the point in Pence being there? He didn't answer any questions, and didn't even discuss any policies. I would do a breakdown of each section, but honestly, none of the debate was in any way related to the questions asked. Harris did discuss some policies, but she didn't really do anything to quell the fears of voters. She left important questions unanswered and seemed more interested in telling stories than appealing to voters. Harris, I love listening to you talk. You're extremely inspiring, but this debate was not a TED Talk. In terms of the policy Harris did discuss, it was really just the same that Biden told us a week ago, though honestly this time it was clearer. That could be because Harris actually got a word in edgewise, but I personally think it's just because she's a much better public speaker. I would end this here because we didn't really learn a lot. I'd say we would learn a lot more in the third debate, now that Biden's had a chance to understand Trump's tactics firsthand. But I suppose we'd better address the elephant in the room. Donald Trump has COVID, which is okay. Other world leaders have had COVID. According to Statista, there have been 9 in total. The advantage, of course, with being a world leader is that you have access to the best healthcare your country can provide. So Trump will be okay, and does in fact seem to be doing a lot better. And no world leaders have died from COVID. At time of recording, having better healthcare generally does that for you. A remote debate was set up. Then, within hours, Trump had already backed out, saying it was a waste of time. In reality, what was happening here is that Trump would have had to admit that COVID is a big problem. A lot of Trump's strategy revolves around him downplaying the issue. So if he's not able to do this, and then pairing this with the fact that he wouldn't be able to use his overwhelming presence to effectively bully his opponent into capitulating to his every whim, and also the moderator, Chris, I still haven't forgot about that, would ultimately lead a remote debate not being all that beneficial for Trump. So America, while you have all had to talk to your loved ones almost exclusively through Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, or the such. The president won't even entertain the idea. One of the most wholesome things I saw throughout this whole ordeal was a dinner date someone I know was having. They posted the picture on Instagram. They'd set up like two sides of a table to look identical and did the whole thing through, I think it was Skype. It was incredible. The effort that they put in just to be with each other was truly heartwarming. The president wouldn't have to put anywhere near this sort of effort in. They have teams for that sort of thing. So, ultimately, he can't even be bothered to talk for the sake of the American people. So, we may as well use this as an excuse to look at Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus. Trump blames Democratic-run states for their poor handling of the crisis. Does he not know that he's president? Like, he can just give them support, he can give them manpower, money, equipment. They have emergency stockpiles for this sort of thing. They have laws ready to go that he only has to sign his name to. Yet he blames democratically run cities. But okay, let's take him at his word. I have taken every entry from the CDC and assigned them to the party that ruled them. I've also collected population density from Statista. Seriously, a helpful website. I then did a little maths. I divided the total number of deaths by the density to find out the proportionality of deaths to density. Because clearly, if you live with a lot of people packed in one place, the number of cases and thus the number of deaths will go up. This isn't a perfect method. Ideally, you would do this per city and per village and per town, etc. But since I get paid to test drugs are safe and not to investigate COVID cases, and the fact that America is massive, this will have to do. Also, while we're being transparent, please don't use this data out of context and out of the scope of this data. It's not perfect, it has flaws, and those should be identified. I'm also going to be including Puerto Rico in this list because the CDC does, and honestly so should America. Just looking at the top 15, you can see that Democrat-run states account for 7 of them, with the worst offender being New York, which is twice as bad as the next state down on the list, which is Texas. Past this point, there is a pretty normal decrease, with the other states being reasonably close to the next worst state on the list. So, that's not great. Twice as bad is twice as bad. But in reality, Trump only really has one good example of a Democrat-run state doing worse. It's 100% worse, but sure, it's only one. And as an argument, it falls apart very quickly. So let's account for population density, using the unit, and I swear this is correct, death kilometers squared per person, and I am not going to use that each time because it is a mouthful. Now things start being a little bit different. You see Texas is at the top of the list, followed by Arizona, which are both red states. Then New York after that. Again, in the top 15, 6 of these are Democrat-run states, so less than before, but realistically, is there any significant change there? If you look at the top of the list, no matter what data adaptation you do to it, there's no real difference between both Democrat and Republican-run states. However, here's the interesting thing. Democrats only run 19 states. So, if we were to look at the bottom of this list of deaths per population density, you'd expect there to be mostly Republican states, right? But, as you can see here, they account for less than a third of the best states. What's particularly damning, or particularly telling, should I say, is that in Democrat-run states like Massachusetts, Maryland, and Connecticut, extremely dense locations with low death per population density. Sorry, the numbers don't lie. Democrats are better at handling this crisis than Republicans are. Trump handled this virus appallingly, and in fact still is. He doesn't care about you, he only cares about himself. Trump is still trying to repeal pre-existing condition protection, the thing that Obamacare introduced. Something that millions of Americans will now fall into because of COVID. Trump tried to stop the stimulus package by bullying people into voting for him on Twitter. He has since gone back on this, but this was only after significant backlash from people across the party lines. Does this strike you as a man who cares about anyone but himself? He's trying to make himself almost like a god, and you want to know why? It's because if he does, people become scared of him and he gets to keep his power. It's step one of a dictatorship. Make people fear you so they don't try and stand against you. He doesn't want to act because if he doesn't, he can just push responsibility onto the states. He can blame someone else. I said privately when he first got COVID that I hope he lives, because that way he might finally make a change. He might finally be more empathetic. I was wrong. He was emotionally dead from the start.